Hey, let's do this. We're doing editable polys today, so let's get started. Um, Open this up. I'm going to throw out a box real quick. All right. Done. No, just kidding. All right. So, things we should know by default. What you're going to see is basically length and segment width and height. All that stuff is going to be set to 1. If this were cranked up, you wouldn't know it because you can't see your edge faces. So make sure that you have edge faces showing so that when you do um, change these, you can see the changes and how it's happening right there on your viewport. So edge faces, pretty important when you're working with editable polys because it's all of these little parts that we're actually going to be moving around. So um, quick tip, if you already have these set up, then what you could do to take it all back to 1 is right click on these double arrows here and it will take it all down to the minimum. And so you can see that. Also, I have this binding box, and some of y'all might notice that there's a box around your objects that you create. So you can't really see it there, but like that, hit J on your keyboard and turn that off if you don't like it. And that's all you got to do to get rid of that box. So yeah, so we're back on our box. Let me get back into the modifier here. Select it. All right, so I'm going to take these segments up to 3. That should be all I need to show you guys how to work around editable polys. Now, I'll show 3 different ways you can get there. So you can right click on your object, go to convert to editable poly, and you'll see that your options show up here. Your sub selections will show up here, as well as down here. Okay, so I'll Control Z that. Let's say I want to use my modifier list. I want to do an editable poly. I can go to Edit Poly, and here we go. Same thing. Sub selections are there. It keeps box there as an object, which I don't really care about. Then you can just right click on the actual object name right there and go to Editable Poly. And there's probably about 5 billion other ways that you can do it. Just like in Adobe programs, I think they kind of share the same set of people. Like, let's think about how many hidden ways we can make people do the same thing. But there's 3 different ways right there. I'm sure there's a dozen more that you can probably learn. You might know different ways you can get there. So let's get into this. I'm in editable poly mode right now. I need to choose a sub selection, and my choices are vertex, edge, border, polygon, and element. So those are my different choices. And what I want to do is start off with vertex, because now you can see what I'm talking about. Here's the different things that I can now move. You can use my regular transform tools with these. I can select one and move it around how I want to. If I go to rotate or scale, there's nothing to scale or rotate because it's just a single vertice. Well, let's say I went and control clicked and had 2 vertices now chosen. I can scale those and scrunch them and squish them how I want to. Same thing with rotate. If I go into rotate and I want to twist those guys around, I can do that. So some of them you need to have more than one selected. Just know that a lot of these same sub selections, you can also transform them or use your regular transform tools, select and transform tools like you normally would any object. So we're just dealing with it on a very singular basis with all these little parts and points. So let's get into more vertices. All right, so let's say I want to extrude a vertice. That sounds weird, but if I go into one single point here and I go to extrude, I can either select here or I can select my settings. I'm going to show the settings first. And as I do that, you can see it makes an extrusion, okay? I can take the height and extrude it more. I can take the width and change that as well. Say I wanted to go inwards. That's fine too. You can have an innie instead of an outie if you want. So pretty simple enough. Let's say I want to choose this one right here and extrude. If I click extrude, I can now click over here and do it just by my mouse. Up and down will get my height, left and right will get my width. So different ways that you can use extrude with your different vertices here. So pretty simple. Other things that we can do right now with just single vertices is let's look at break. So if I go to this vertice right here, I'm picking on this one for a while. I want to go to break. All right. Make sure I've got it selected. I'm going to unselect extrude. And I have that one vertice selected, highlight, and break it. Looks like nothing really happened, but if I get into this view, I can kind of monkey around with, oh, it did break. There's 4 different broken parts to it because it takes it by each little intersection. And now I have, 4 different parts. I just broke that vertice into 4 different parts. Now I can kind of peek inside the box there. So I can break vertices. Another thing you should know is if you are selecting vertices, say I can just do a single selection like that. But let's say you're in this view and I do a single selection. Okay, I go back into perspective and that one is just selected. If I go back to front, let's say I select like this, drag and select. Looks like the same thing, but when I go into perspective, now you can see I have that whole row now selected. So I can take that whole row and move them around if I wanted to. So different ways that you should be aware of, like when you're making selections on these things, that you're not selecting more than you really want. Okay, so let's get into edges. Okay, here's a little bit on edges. When you select edges, now I have different things here that I can work with as well. So if I get into doing an extrude for an edge, say I select that edge, and what an edge is basically each little segment, not the full length, but a little segment between the vertices is an edge. So let's look at extrude. If I go and click on that, up and down is my height, left and right is my width, just like with the vertices. And I can extrude on an edge. Okay, or I can go inwards on an edge. So there's something to work with. You can also do the same thing with the settings. I just added an extrusion on the end of an extrusion. I can deal with the height, I can deal with the width, and adjust it as I need to. Make sure you click check, and that will save your settings there. We can look at chamfer. Okay, so chamfer is something that we dealt with as a modifier. Now you can also work with it here. So let's say I want this edge right here. It's a very hard, sharp edge. What I want to do is select this whole row, control select these, and I want to chamfer that edge. So if I go to select chamfer and drag on it, you see what it does? It splits, it kind of cuts away the edge, makes it not so hard. So with your mouse, you can just left click and drag that around. Another way you can do that is by going into settings. You have more options here. Move that out of the way. We get a little bit better view. And now I have this, which is the only thing I can do by just clicking and dragging. I can go to this and add on different levels of edges, and I can make it really soft or how I want it to look. So that's just an option there for you for chamfering. We can split and weld, which we'll get to later, but just wanted to show that. If you wanted to remove an edge, you can do that. So if I take that and say I want that gone, now I've changed my my geometry here. Or let's say, hey, I want that, but I wish there was a vertice. I have 4 vertices here. What if I want a vertice right here? You can insert a vertex and select a point. And there I just added a vertex right there in the middle of that edge. So you can customize it and turn it off. And then when you go back into vertex mode, you can see that it's there. And now you can take that and adjust it as you need to. So a little bit with edges there. I'm going to skip borders for now and get into polygons. Polygon's fun because once you select a polygon, like your regular transform tools, you can just take that and push and pull. Kind of has a very fabric on a wire, frame kind of a feel to it. But that's not extruding. That's just pushing and pulling that particular polygon. Same thing can go with scaling it. Can scale it. I can, get into rotating it as well, kind of stretch it around. So that is just transform tools with the polygon. Let me make sure I'm in edit polygons right here. I can extrude that. So I can take that and click and drag, push in, pull out, whichever way. And then I can keep doing that. I can keep going further and further. Or I can go to settings and I can click a face, and it will extrude it. I can go into the setting mode here and say I like that. Let's say I want to do another one. Oh, just add it on. And another one, and another one, and another one. Let's say I want to go this way. And another one, and another one. And check it. Add another one here. Let's go on. I'm just having fun making extrusions now. I'm going to kind of create a weird shape here, and this is going to be helpful for what we're going to do next. So I've got these added up. I'm okay with that. Something else you can do with that, you can also create what's known as a bevel. So I'm going to extrude this one out a little bit, and then I'm going to check, and I'm going to add a bevel. And what a bevel does, I've pulled up the settings button here. You can adjust kind of the height of it. How high do you want your bevel to be? You can also adjust, does it taper in? Does it go out? And you decide how you want that to look. And so I can do another one and another one. All right. I don't want that many really. So I'm going to back that out. Check that. And that's beveling. It's really simple. Let's say I want to do another bevel on this edge. Do the same thing. It's 2-click system without using the settings. So I got that. I'm dragging it out, let go, drag in, and now I've got, some weird thing happening there. Now I got this shape on the back, this polygon still selected. So let's get into inset. So let me check the settings for inset. And now what it does is basically creating inset polys within the poly. So I can keep going and going. I don't want that. So you can kind of see I can take it in, and then, you can go back in and let's say you want to bevel some more from that level. So kind of handy how you can make that work out. So let's get into what's known as bridging. So you can do bridges with any of these. You can do it with border and edge and poly. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to take that and I'm going to get out of bevel and select that. And I'm going to take that and I'm just going to delete it. Hit delete on the keyboard. Now I can kind of take a peek like inside. All right. There's a peek inside of my box now. It's hollow. It's just a little frame. So now I've got this selected. Now what am I going to do with that? So let's say I wanted to go back into edge mode here. I can select these and I can select them individually if I wanted to. I'm going to control select these right across from each other. And with those two selected, I'm going to go down here and hit bridge. And it basically made a bridge. So if I wanted to do this all the way around, I could do that and build a bridge all the way around, just kind of recreate that form. I'm going to back out of that. And because what I can do also is do that same thing with the border. So this is your borders. And if I select the border right here, you notice that it takes the cutout of that object that I just made. And I'm going to hold control and select this border. And I'm going to go to bridge. And it basically completes that whole box there for me. So pretty simple ways that you can control certain settings. Let's take a look at what else we can do here with poly. So I'm going to go back into my poly mode here. And let's take a look at let's see. Let's go ahead and call it quits for this one for right now, because what I'm going to run out of time here on this, and there's more things that I want to cover with these tools. So I don't have enough time right now to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this, and we'll pick up with part 2